The previous video we had seen about coding and interleaving. So next is we'll be seeing about automatic repeat request. So automatic repeat request is in your LTE it is going to use two types. One is the automatic repeat request. The other one is going to be a hybrid automatic repeat request technique there. So mainly these two techniques are going to be used for flow and error control. That is, when the packet is going to be transmitted from the transmitter side to the receiver side, if the receiver has not received the package properly, then I have to request for the request again the transmitter to send the packet by sending an acknowledgement signal there. So mainly ARQ is going to be automatic repeat request is going to be used in the MAC layer transmission protocol there. So here in this case it is going to allow the error packet to be retransmitted there. So here these protocols it is going to work in conjunction with your physical layer protocol there. So where in a physical layer we are going to have the error correction codes to be present and the parity checks are going to be used to ensure the reliable links even in your hostile channels. So suppose ARQ, what happens is a single bit error is going to cause a packet error. So with ARQ, in your ARQ method, when the transmitter is going to transmit a packet and the receiver side, even one bit is not received properly, then the receiver will send a no acknowledgement signal to the transmitter there. So then automatically the transmitter should retransmit the data. So even though 99% of the data has been received properly, for that one bit of 1% it has to be retransmitted again and again. So this method is inefficient there. So here we say that since a single bit error causes a packet error, which means that the entire packet must be retransmitted even when nearly all the bits are already received are correct. 99% of the bits are received correct. Only one bit is wrong also. Again it has to retransmit the data there. That is the disadvantage in your automatic repeat request protocol there. So what we do is to overcome it, we go for a hybrid ARQ technique there. So a hybrid ARQ technique is nothing but it is going to combine the two concepts, that is the automatic repeat request and the forward error correction code to avoid your to overcome the inefficiency there. So how it is going to overcome is to recombine with the previous packets. So here in this case, a hybrid ARQ is going to be extract the additional time diversity in your failing channel there. So your ARQ, automatic repeat request. So this transmitter is going to send the data. If the receiver has not received the packet correctly, even one there is going to be one bit of the data is in error. Then again the receiver will send a no acknowledgement to the transmitter, and the transmitter has to transmit the data again. Now the receiver will again check it. If it has received the correct packet, then it will send an acknowledgement signal to the transmitter. So the bad packets are going to be discarded. So in the hybrid ARQ method, we are going to have a channel encoder such as a conventional encoder or a turbo encoder, which is going to generate the additional redundancy to the information bits there. So instead of transmitting all the encoded bits, that is the systematic bits plus the redundancy bits, only a fraction of the encoded bits are going to be transmitted there. So here this fraction of the encoded bits are going to be done by the functioning process there, where only some of the encoded bits are going to be create an effective code rate which is going to be greater than the native code rate of the encoder. That is, actual data what we want to transmit, that data we are not going to transmit, we are going to drop some bits and transmit the data. So in that case, the effective code rate is going to be greater than the native code rate of the encoder there. So after transmitting the encoded and punctured bits, the transmitter waits for an acknowledgement from the receiver, telling it whether the receiver was able to successfully decode the information bits from the transmission or not. If the receiver is able to decode the information bits, then nothing else is to be done. If on the other hand, if the receiver is not able to decode the information bits, then the transmitter should send then another copy of the encoded bits there. So in a hybrid ARQ, it is going to be used both by a physical and MAC layers which are going to work together. So we call it as a hybrid ARQ there. So a physical layer sends some bits first, that is your user's functioning. Then sends additional bits only if necessary there. So here the additional bits are sent until the decoding is successful. So here in this case, Yeah, that is called increment. Again, in a hierarchy, we have two types. One is incremental redundancy or chase combining. Type 1 hierarchy there. So here in this case, we are going to have a transmitter and the receiver. That is the first type, incremental type redundancy or type 2. So your data transmitter is going to send the data, but it is going to send the data with punctured data. That is 1 by 2 puncturing there. And if the receiver has not received the data properly, it will send a no acknowledgement signal. Then again that encoded data will be sent by different puncturing rate, that is 1 by 4 puncture bits. So what it will do is a receiver will not discard the previous packet what it has received, it will retain that packet. And now what packet it has received, it will combine and decode both the, will combine both the packets what it has received and decode the data there. And after decoding it, if it finds the correct data, then it will send an acknowledgement signal to the transmitter. If no acknowledgements means again the puncturing code will be changed and again it is going to combine with the previous packets and then it is going to decode there. So that is called incremental redundancy or your type 2 HARQ there. Next is your another alternative is your good bits of multiple transmissions there. So here a transmitter is going to send the data. So without any puncturing, it is going to send the data as such. The receiver, if it is not going to get the correct data, it is going to send back a no acknowledgement signal to the transmitter. And again the transmitter will resend the data. Now the receiver what it will do is it will combine with the previous data, decode the data there. If the data what it has received is correct means in that case it will send back an acknowledgement signal. That is called as chase combining or type 1 hybrid ARQ. So next is your adaptive modulation and coding. So adaptive modulation and coding is based on the channel time, based on the channel conditions, the proper modulation technique and the coding methods are going to be chosen so that the variations or the degradation in the signal can be avoided there. So we say that your LTE system is going to employ your adaptive modulation and coding, which is going to take the advantages of the fluctuations in the channel over time and frequency there. So the basic idea of adaptive modulation and coding is it is going to transmit the data as high data rate as possible when and where the channel is good and transmit at a lower rate when and where the channel is poor in order to avoid the excessive dropped packets. So based on the channel conditions, your data are going to be transmitted. If the channel condition is going to be good, you are going to transmit the data and a high data rate is going to be transmitted there. If the channel condition is going to be poor, then a low data rate is going to be transmitted. So that we can see that higher throughput is going to be achieved and latency is also going to be reduced there. So lower data rates are going to be achieved where we are going to use a small constellation such as your quadrature phase shifting QPSK and low rate error correcting codes such as your rate 1 by 3 turbo codes. So here the higher data rates are going to be achieved with large constellations such as 64 QAM and it is going to be less robust to error correcting codes there. So when I'm going to use a lower data rates means the lower data rates is going to use a smaller constellation such as QPSK and the rate error is going to be such as 1 by 3 turbo codes there. But when I'm going to go for high data rates means it is going to be used with a large constellation such as a 64 QAM and it is going to be less robust to your error correcting codes there. So to perform your analog adaptive modulation and coding, the transmitter must have some knowledge about the channel gain. So based on the channel gain only, it can do transmit the data there. So once it does, it can choose the modulation technique and it will achieve the highest possible data rate while still meeting a bit error rate or the packet error rate requirement. So an alternative objective to this pick the modulation and coding combination is simply maximizes the successful throughput. That is, by going for adaptive modulation and coding, we can see that the throughput can be increased there. So the block diagram of this adaptive modulation and coding system is going shown here, where we are going to consider only a single user, which is going to transmit the data there through the channel with a variable signal to interference noise ratio. So the bits are going to be in queue, which is going to be given to the transmitter block. So in the transmitter block, we are going to have three sub blocks. One is going to be the error correction code encoder. symbol mapper and your power control there. So your adaptive modulation coding controller, it is going to select the code. So based on this, it is going to select based on your channel conditions, your symbol mapper. It is going to select whether it is your QPSK or your QAM, which model is going to be selected. All the symbols are going to be mapped and the error correction codes are going to be added to it, and the suitable power that is required for the data transfer is going to be chosen there, and then the data is going to be transmitted through the channel, and the receiver side is going to be demodulated and it is going to be given out through a decoder. And again I have to do the channel estimations at the receiver. The channel estimation is going to be done and that feedback is going to be given to the adaptive modulation coding controller there. So here mainly the goal of the transmitter, that is the main purpose of the transmitter, is to transmit the data from its queue as rapidly as possible, subject to the data being demodulated and decode reliability at the receiver there. So feedback is going to be critical for your adaptive modulation and coding. So the transmitter needs to know what is going to be the channel signal to noise ratio. So, for example, here it shows a possible realization of the analog model, adaptive modulation and coding using three different code rates. So, code rates are going to be 1 by 2, 3 by 4, and 2 by 3. On three different modulation types, your QPSK, 16 QAM, and 64 QAM. So, here your QPSK is going to be for your lower data rate, and your Q64 QAM is going to be the highest data rate there. So throughput versus your signal to noise ratio is going to be taken based on the best available constellation size and the coding configuration there. So what coding should be chosen and what is going to be the constellation size that is going to be required to achieve the maximum throughput there. So maximum throughput is going to be achieved using a 64 QAM and the code rate is going to be 3 by 4, and minimum is going to be our QPSK where the code rate is going to be 1 by 2. So here we are going to do your mitigation of the broadband fading. So mitigation of the broadband fading is in the wireless channel is going to be a broadband channel. What we are going to do is the total band signal is going to be of bandwidth B, which is going to be divided into L subcarriers there. So in that case, each signal is going to be transmitted through a frequency selective fading channel there, where the signal is going to be dispersed in time. And in your broadband fading, main problem is your intersymbol interference there. So to reduce this intersymbol interference, what we are going to do is that high data rate system is going to be divided into a number of L subcarriers, or it is going to be into small data rate systems there. So here to mitigate or to avoid this intersymbol interference, we are going to go for your OFDM technique here. So first technique is going to be a spread spectrum and your rake receivers. So spread spectrum is nothing but it is a technique of transmitting the narrowband data signal in a wideband channel. It's called spread spectrum. So narrowband data signal is going to be sent through a wideband channel, means is going to be called as spread spectrum. And the spread spectrum techniques are going to be two types. One is a direct sequence spread spectrum and the other one is going to be a frequency hopping. So a direct sequence spread spectrum is nothing but a code division multiple access there. So where this code division multiple access is going to be used in cellular voice networks, and is going to be effective at multiplying a large number of variable rate users in the cellular environment. Next is frequency hopping spread spectrum. So frequency hopping spread spectrum is going to be used in your low rate wireless LANs like Bluetooth or for interference averaging properties in your GSM cellular networks there. So spread spectrum techniques are going to be not an appropriate technology for high data rates because of the self interference. So here in this case it is not a natural choice. So here although the self interference can be corrected with the help of an equalizer, but it reduces the purpose of using a spectrum to help with ISA. Self interference can be corrected with an equalizer, but the intersymbol interference cannot be corrected there. Next is equalization. So equalizations are nothing but it is going to be the alternative for your ISA suppression. So intersymbol interference suppression is going to be done where they don't require additional antennas or bandwidth and have moderate complexity is going to be present there. So the equalizers are going to be basically present at the receiver side, and when I'm going to use my equalizers, whatever is going to be the channel response is going to be inverted at the equalizer. When the channel response is going to be inverted, even the noise that is going to present in the channel response is also going to be inverted there. So here your equalizers, it can be basically broken into two types. One is linear equalizer and the other one is your decision directed equalizers, that is your non-linear equalizers there. So linear equalizers are nothing but it is going to run the received signal. Whatever is going to be the received signal, that received signal is going to be passed through a filter, and that is going to be where that filter is going to be modeled as the inverse of the channel there. And the problem with this is it not only inverts the channel response but also the noise that is going to be received. So this noise enhancement will severely degrade the receiver performance. So especially in your wireless channel with deep frequency fades. So linear receivers are going to be simple to implement but achieve poor performance in time varying and severe ISI channel there. So next is a nonlinear equalizers. So nonlinear equalizers are going to use the previous symbol decisions. So whatever is going to be the previous symbol decisions that is going to be made by the receiver to cancel out the subsequent interference is going to be called as decision feedback equalizers. So here the previous symbol interference is going to be calculated, and whatever is going to be decision made by the receiver, that is going to be calculated with the subsequent interference there. So we call it as decision feedback equalizers. So here in this cases we should know about the prior symbols which are causing the error propagation there. So that is the main problem that is going to be associated with non-linear equalizers there. So here in this case it is going to pay for the improved performance. So related to your linear receivers there. So here in this case, but with increased computational complexity and your sophisticated training is required to handle the a priori signals there. Next is multi-carrier modulation. So multi-carrier modulation, you are going to have your OFDM. So OFDM, we know that it is going to have the time dispersive, your ISI channel. So here in this case, in your multi-carrier modulation is going to be, we are going to take the channel which is going to be a time dispersive in nature there. So here what we are going to do is what a large bandwidth signal is going to be broken down into smaller bandwidths, which is going to have the number of subcarriers, where L subcarriers are all the subcarriers are going to be used in parallel, so that the symbol time for each subscriber is going to vary from T to LT. So here in this case, then I'm going to send a single signal with a data rate R and the bandwidth B. Then why not send L signals at the same time, each having a bandwidth of B by L and data rate R by L. So in this way, we can see that the B by L less than C, BC. That is the coherence bandwidth. Each of the signal will undergo approximately flat fading there, and time dispersion of the each signal will be negligible. So here in this case, as long as the subcarriers is going to be large enough, your B by L ratio will be less than your BC. So it can be met, so you can avoid your intersymbol interference there. Next is a single carrier modulation with frequency domain equalization. So here the primary drawback of this is in your OFDM is high peak to average ratio. So here in this case, the dynamic range of the transmit power, that is going to be too large. So this is going to result in your clipping or distortion because of the non-linearity of the components that is going to be present there. The non-linear power amplifier, the output is going to be distorted and clipping is going to be present. Once it can transmit a single carrier signal with a cyclic prefix, which is going to have a low peak to average ratio, and then do all the processing at the receiver. So here what we are going to do is here in this case we are going to have a cyclic prefix. So cyclic prefix is going to be added to the single carrier signal, which is going to have a low peak to average ratio, and we are going to do all the processing at the receiver side. So here we are going to follow a technique called a fast Fourier transform, where this fast Fourier transform is going to move the signal from the time domain to the frequency domain, and we are going to have an one tap equalizer just like in your OFDM. And an inverse FFT is going to be used at the receiver side at the transmitter side itself to convert back into your time domain for decoding and detection. Thank you. So here in this case, in addition to eliminating your OFDM's PAR problem, an additional advantages for the uplink, it is potential to move the FFT and IFT operations to the base station there. So multiple uplink users share the same frequency channel at the same time there. The mobile station must perform FFT and your IFFT operations. So here in this case, for uplink, we are going to use a single carrier FDMA technique.